Before we continue, please do subscribe to my channel. It was a Tuesday morning. The sun barely peeked through the heavy clouds and a cold wind swept around the courthouse steps. Emma sat there, still as stone, hugging her threadbare teddy bear so tightly it looked like it might fall apart. Her shoes were scuffed, her knees scraped, her eyes tired. Much too tired for someone only 8 years old. She didn't cry, not anymore. She had already cried through the night, silently, curled on the rough cot in the shelter room inside. And now, as families walked past her mothers holding children, fathers opening car doors, toddlers tugging lunchboxes, Emma sat there invisible, unseen, as if she were made of glass. No one stopped. No one looked twice. Her teddy bear's button eye had come loose. She fiddled with it, trying to keep her fingers busy. She was hungry, but more than that, she was lonely. Not the kind of loneliness that passes. The kind that settles into your bones and starts to feel like home. Every few minutes, she looked toward the glass doors of the courthouse, hoping anyone would come out and say her name. They didn't. Inside that building, a social worker had forgotten she asked Emma to wait, just like others had forgotten her name before. She was used to that. She was used to being the extra chair at the table, the coat no one claimed, the kid who got moved again and again. Until that morning, Emma still had hope. A little. But something about being left outside alone again made it feel like that last flicker had gone out. Then, footsteps. She didn't look up. People walked past her all the time, but these steps slowed, paused. She heard a child's voice, soft and curious. "Why are you sad?" Emma blinked and looked up. Before we continue, please do subscribe to my channel. A boy maybe 5 or 6 years old stood in front of her. He had curly brown hair that danced in the breeze and wore a jacket too big for him. Held a blue race car in one hand. Emma didn't answer. She lowered her eyes again, clutched her, teddy tighter. "Hi," he said again. Quieter this time. "I'm Noah." Before she could say anything, a man hurried over and gently pulled the boy back. "Noah, but don't bother people. Let's go." The man glanced at Emma, just a quick glance, polite. Tired eyes, rough stubble on his jaw, a worn jacket. He looked like someone who had been carrying too much for too long. He started to walk away, but then stopped. He turned. Around, looked again, and this time he really looked. Emma didn't know what it was. Maybe the way she gripped her bear. Maybe the way her face stayed quiet, but her eyes screamed. Maybe the way Noah was still staring at her like she was the most interesting person on the steps. The man sighed. He walked back, crouched down beside her. "Hey," he said, voice low and kind. "You okay?" Emma nodded. It wasn't true, but it was what she always said. "You waiting for someone?" It's another nod, but her hands trembled. The man noticed. He opened the brown paper bag. He was holding inside was a sandwich and a bottle of water. "You hungry?" Emma hesitated, then nodded. Again, he handed it to her gently, not pushing, not asking questions. She took it slowly, like it might disappear if she moved too fast. She unwrapped the sandwich like a treasure, took a bite, then another, then stopped, blinking back sudden tears. The man sat beside her on the steps. Noah plopped down on Emma's other side and started talking about his toy car like they were already friends. I named him Zippy. He goes super fast. "Want to see?" Emma didn't speak, but she watched. That was enough. They sat there for a while, 3 strangers sharing a quiet space like it belonged to them. Then, suddenly the glass doors burst open. A woman rushed out, breathless, clipboard in hand, hair flying behind her. "There you are," she snapped. "Emma, I told you to wait inside." Emma flinched. She stood up, eyes low, sandwich still half-eaten. The man looked at the woman, eyebrows raised. "She's been out here alone. In the cold, I had a hearing, things got delayed. She knows how to wait." Emma didn't say a word. She followed the woman like a shadow. As they walked away, Noah leaned close to his dad and whispered, "I like her. Can she come live with us?" The man smiled faintly. "It's not that simple, bud." But even as he said it, he found himself. Turning to look at her one last time, Emma glanced back. Their eyes met for half second. Then she disappeared into the building. He didn't know her name yet, didn't know her past, didn't know her story, but something inside him stirred a little. Ache. A tug in his chest, and as he picked up Noah and headed toward the parking lot, he couldn't stop wondering, why was she out there alone? And why couldn't he forget the way her eyes looked right through him like she already knew people walked away? That night, David Reynolds couldn't sleep. David Reynolds wasn't a man who made impulsive decisions. He was the kind of man who used coupons, fixed things before they broke, and checked the weather 3 times before planning anything outdoors. Life had taught him early to be careful, to think things through, but nothing in life had prepared him to become a single father. It wasn't the plan. He and Lauren had planned a life together. 2 kids, a little house with a red front door Sunday. Pancakes, maybe a dog. David was a mechanic, hands always smudged with oil, but eyes soft when it came to Lauren. She was the light in his world, and then she was gone. One moment she was holding his hand in the delivery room, smiling through pain, and the next doctors were pushing him out of the way, voices sharp, machines screaming. Lauren died giving birth to their son. David remembered staring at the tiny newborn wrapped in a blue blanket, feeling both awe and terror. Never held a baby before, and now, somehow, was supposed to raise one. Alone, but he did. He named him Noah. And every sleepless night, every diaper disaster, every preschool meltdown, they got through it together. David worked long hours at the auto shop, and when Noah was old enough, he'd sit on a stool near the garage and hand his dad tools like a tiny assistant. They were a team. Just the 2 of them. David didn't date, didn't go out. His world had narrowed to one small house, a car that needed new tires, and a boy with big brown eyes who called him Daddy like it was the most important word in the world. Still, something was missing, not in a way that made David feel incomplete. But in the quiet moments in between bedtime stories and packing lunches, there were echoes. Spaces once filled with laughter that now held silence. Corners of his heart that stayed untouched, tucked away in grief. And lately, Noah had started asking questions. Why don't I have a mommy? David would ruffle his hair gently and say, You have me, kiddo, and I've got you. That's more than enough. Noah would nod. But sometimes, at night, David would find him sitting on the edge of his bed, looking out the window, waiting for something, someone. David wished he had answers. He wished love was enough to fill all the missing pieces. That Tuesday morning, they were at the courthouse for a small thing, just to file paperwork for Noah's school transfer. His last teacher had moved away, and David didn't want him bouncing around. Stability mattered. He'd fought hard for it. They were supposed to be in and out in 20 minutes, but the line was long, and the clerk had lost the form, and Noah started getting restless. So they stepped outside for a few minutes to get some errandettes. When they saw her, the girl on the steps, David had almost walked past. He'd seen enough sadness in his life. He didn't need more, but Noah did know. Stopped, David watched his son walk right up to the girl without hesitation, like he'd known her forever. And when she didn't respond, when she kept her head low and arms wrapped around that worn-out teddy bear, something inside David twisted. He saw himself in her stillness. He saw Lauren in the girl's silence. She wasn't making a scene. She wasn't begging for help. She was just waiting, alone. Invisible David told himself not to get involved, but he did. He gave her a sandwich, sat beside her, listened to the soft crinkle of the wrapper as she ate. He watched Noah talk to her like she was already family. And when the social worker came out and scolded her, and the girl-ma, he heard her name in passing, shrank into herself again. Heart didn't break. It cracked, quietly, like something inside him had shifted. Later that night, back at home, Noah was unusually quiet. He picked at his dinner, then climbed into David's lap while they sat on the couch watching cartoons. Daddy? A while, yeah, bud. Do you think she has a bed? David blinked. Who? The girl, the one with the teddy. David swallowed. I'm sure she does. Somewhere. Noah leaned against him. I hope she's warm. David didn't answer, because he wasn't sure. That night, after Noah had fallen asleep tucked under his favorite dinosaur blanket, nightlight casting gentle stars across the walls, David sat alone in the kitchen, nursing a mug of cold coffee. He couldn't stop. Thinking about her, he barely knew her name, knew nothing about her story, but he knew that look in her eyes, that quiet ache, that exhausted, almost gave up kind of silence. He'd seen it once before. In the mirror, David opened his laptop. The County Child Services website, looked up the number. He didn't call, not yet, but he left the tab open, and before bed, he checked it again, just in case. Emma hadn't always been alone. Once her world was soft, filled with bedtime lullabies and the smell of cinnamon from her mother's baking. The walls of their tiny apartment were thin, but warm. When it rained, her mother would light candles and read stories aloud. Turning shadows into castles and monsters into misunderstood friends, her mother called her sunbeam. Every morning, she'd kiss Emma's forehead and say, "You bring the light, baby," even when it's dark. But the light didn't last. When her mom got sick, it happened fast. First, she was tired all the time. Then, there were hospital visits, missed dinners, and whispered phone calls Emma wasn't meant to hear. One night, Emma heard her crying behind the bathroom door. That was the night the lullaby stopped. Cancer doesn't care how much someone is loved. When her mother died, Emma was 6. She remembered the funeral mostly through the way everyone avoided her eyes. A few family members promised to stay in touch. One uncle even gave her a teddy bear that smelled like cologne. But within weeks, she was moved to her aunt's house, then her cousins, then a stranger's. Again and again, no one stayed. No one chose her. They said it wasn't the right time. Or their apartment was too small, or that Emma was too quiet, too sad, too much. And Emma started to believe them. She stopped unpacking her bags. Stopped decorating walls with crayon drawings. She slept in the corner of beds and flinched when anyone raised their voice. Every new home felt like an in-between place. Just a hallway to the next goodbye. The system placed her in a group, home after her 3rd failed foster match. She was only 7. There, she learned about rules, about sharing everything from socks to secrets with girls who had names like hers and stories too heavy to carry. Some kids acted tough. Some kids cried at night. Emma did neither. She learned to go quiet. To disappear that way, she wouldn't be a problem, wouldn't be sent away again. Her case file grew. Each time a new social worker visited, she'd watch them with wide eyes and wait for a sentence that began with, "So, Emma." But the sentence never ended with anything permanent. At night, she whispered to her teddy bear, "Just stay quiet, and maybe they'll let us stay." She named the bear Benny. Benny had one ear, one button eye, and smelled faintly of her first home. She kept him close, even when the other kids teased her. He was her one constant, her one secret. When they told her she had to go to the courthouse that day, Emma didn't ask why. She'd never ask questions anymore. She sat where they told her to sit, waited like they told her to wait. And when she was forgotten on the courthouse steps, she didn't panic. She just tightened her arms around Benny and watched people walk by. Each person a world she wasn't a part of, until that boy spoke Noah. She remembered his voice more than his words, and the man.
Ow.
His voice was deep, careful but not sharp. Like some of the others, when he offered her a sandwich, her stomach had growled with embarrassment. She didn't want to seem greedy, but she couldn't resist the smell of peanut butter. She'd taken small bites, chewed slowly, her eyes never left the ground. She was afraid if she looked up they'd disappear, but they didn't. They stayed. The boy talked about his toy car. And for a moment, just when Emma felt something unfamiliar, warmth. Not from the sandwich. From the way they sat beside her without trying to fix her or question her, tell her what to do. She wasn't a project. She was just a girl on some steps. And they treated her like that was enough. When her social worker finally came out, Red voice annoyed Emma, didn't even flinch. She'd heard worse. She stood clutching Benny, her sandwich unfinished, followed, but just before she entered the building, she glanced back, and the man was still watching, not in a creepy way. In a careful way, like he was trying to remember her that night. Back in the group home, Emma didn't cry. She stared at the ceiling and wondered what the boy's name was. She wondered why the sandwich had tasted different from the others. She wondered what it would feel like to stay somewhere, and even though she told herself not to, she hoped David tried to forget, tried to focus on normal things, making Noah's lunch, fixing a leaky sink, checking the air pressure in his truck tires, things he could understand, things that had instructions, but his mind kept going back. To her, the little girl on the courthouse steps with the worn-out teddy bear and eyes that looked far too old for her face, the girl who didn't beg, didn't speak, but somehow stayed with him. He didn't know why it hit him so hard. He'd seen kids before, lost kids. The city had plenty, especially near the auto shop, where tired mothers came in with broken cars and eyes full of worry. David always tried to help when he could. A discount here, free oil change there. But he'd never felt this way before. It wasn't just about guilt. It was something else. Something deeper that night.
After putting
Noah to bed, David found himself sitting on the couch staring at the dark screen of the television. The house was quiet. Too quiet. He opened his laptop. The browser was still on the child services page from the day before. He hesitated, then typed in the county's main number. A woman answered. Department of Child and Family Services, how can I help you? David cleared his throat. Yeah. Hi. I saw a little girl yesterday, outside the courthouse. She was with a social worker. Small, about 8, holding a teddy bear. I don't know her name. There was a pause. Then the woman said gently, Sir, we handle a lot of cases. Do you have any more details? David felt foolish. No, I can't stop thinking. About her. Another pause. Then, something surprising. The woman didn't dismiss him. She said, Would you like to speak with a case coordinator? We can check if she's in the system. May take time. David agreed. They took his number, and just like that he was in it. The next day, a woman named Tanya called him back. She was brisk, professional, but kind. David explained everything. She asked questions. Had he ever fostered before? No. Did he have any criminal background? No. Was he aware of the challenges involved in fostering a child with trauma? I think so. She told him that if the girl was who she suspected, Anima R, then yes, she was in care. Yes, she was available for placement. But she'd been in and out of homes, and her file was complicated. What does that mean? David asked. Tanya sighed. It means she's been let down a lot. She doesn't trust easily, and frankly, she's close to being placed in long-term residential care. David's stomach turned. You mean an institution? She's been through 5 homes, 1 more failed placement, and she'll be moved into a long-term facility with rotating staff and group housing. David was silent. Are you sure? You want to explore this? Tanya asked gently. I can send you information, but this isn't easy. You already have a child. David thought of Noah's face, of the way his son had looked at Emma like she was already family. I want to try, he said. The process was a maze. Paperwork thicker than a car manual, home inspections, background checks, interviews, parent training sessions, medical exams, financial disclosures. And through it all, David questioned himself. What if he wasn't enough? What if he broke her heart without meaning to? What if he made things worse? But every time he thought about stopping, he remembered her eyes. And Noah. Noah asked about her almost every day. Did you find her, Daddy? Can we see her again? David didn't want to promise what he couldn't give, so he just said, I'm trying. Weeks turned into 2 months. David's house was inspected, his fingerprints cleared. He attended a class on trauma-informed parenting and listened to stories that made his heart ache. He sat through long sessions where he was told, she may never bond. She may push you away. Are you still willing? He said yes. Every time then. The call came. It was Tanya. She's approved for foster placement. If you're still willing, she could be moved as early as next week. David's heart skipped. Does she know? She knows someone's been asking about her, but she doesn't trust it yet. David swallowed. Okay, let her know. I'm not going anywhere. That night he told Noah. His son's eyes lit up. Really? She's coming here? David smiled. If everything goes right, yeah. Noah did a victory dance in the living room. Can I give her my red blanket? David chuckled. You sure? That's your favorite? She can have it. Maybe it'll help her feel safe. David blinked, emotion catching him off guard. Noah didn't understand the weight of what was coming. But maybe that was the beauty of children. They didn't overthink love. They just gave it. The room that had once been a guest room was transformed. Emma's space. David painted the walls soft lavender. Noah drew a picture of a sun and taped it to the door. David wasn't sure what Emma liked, so he kept it simple. A soft bed, a lamp with stars. A shelf for books she might not read yet. He placed a new teddy bear on the pillow, just in case. Benny ever needed a break? When the day came, David stood on the porch, heart pounding. A car pulled up. A caseworker stepped out, and then Emma, she was smaller than he remembered. Her hair was neater now, her clothes clean, but she still held Benny close, and her eyes still carried storms. David didn't rush. He knelt. Hi, Emma. She didn't speak. He offered his hand. I'm David. She didn't take it, just stared. Noah ran to the porch, barefoot, waving wildly. Hi again, you remember me? Emma nodded. Barely. David rose slowly. You don't have to talk yet. Just come inside when you're ready. No pressure. She hesitated, then followed. Her small feet crossed the doorway, and for the first time in years, Emma entered a home where someone had waited for her. The room was filled with the low hum of the hidden security cameras. The air inside the vault had shifted. No longer a trap, it had become a stage. Mr. Grayson stood still, hands behind his back, eyes never leaving the open safe. He had watched maids panic, cry, even steal, but never this, never what Maria just did. She hadn't taken anything. She hadn't even reached for the pearls or touched the gold. Instead, she had placed something inside, her own bracelet. A dull copper bangle, one end bent slightly out of shape. It shimmered not with wealth, but with memory. A gift from her late father. She had once told Mrs. Lawson the only thing she had left from him, and now it lay atop. A pile of untouched treasure. The boss blinked. Once, then again. Still not a word, Maria finally spoke, her voice soft but not shaking anymore. I don't know what you expected to find, sir, but I know what I wanted to leave in there, that bangle. It reminded me not to become the kind of person this money could turn me into. Grayson took one small step forward. His voice, when it came, was raspy and bare. You put something in the safe. She turned her eyes to him. Yes. Yes. His lips twitched. Why? Maria's breath hitched, not out of fear, but clarity. Because I wanted you to know. Some of us aren't here to take from the world. Some of us came to give. Mrs. Lawson, who had been watching from the monitor room, burst in. Sir, I saw everything. Mariah didn't even flinch. Her words trailed off. Grayson held up his hand gently to silence her. He looked at Maria as if seeing her for the first time. All this time, he thought loyalty could be tested through temptation, that a person's character was proven in secret. But this woman didn't care what trap was laid because she carried her own integrity like armor. Do you understand? He said slowly. That anyone else would have walked out with something? Even just a coin? Maria nodded. Then why not you? Her answer was immediate. Because someone like me never wants to be questioned. Not even by a camera. Not even by myself. I may be your maid, sir, but my dignity is not for sale. For the first time in years, Grayson felt something shift deep in his chest. A lump he didn't know how to name lodged in his throat. He stepped closer. picked up the bangle carefully as if it were more precious. Then the emerald-studded necklace beside it. Then slowly, he placed it back and shut the vault. But this time, the sound of the latch closing wasn't cold. It sounded like closure, like understanding. Mrs. Lawson stepped beside Maria. Her eyes teary. You don't know what you just did? He's never looked at anyone like that. Maria didn't reply. She didn't need to. Her expression remained composed. But inside her chest, her heart was racing. Not with fear, with something warmer, pride. By afternoon, the house was abuzz with quiet murmurs. Something had changed. The staff noticed how Mr. Grayson greeted Maria with a slight nod now. How Mrs. Lawson took her aside, whispering, "You're not going anywhere." "Dear, not if I can help it." Then, just before sunset, Maria was called upstairs. Grayson's study was vast floor-to-ceiling books, dark polished wood, and a fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. He gestured toward the chair in front of his desk. "I have a question," he said. "Answer honestly, like you always do." She nodded. Double quotes, "Why are you here? Not just in this room, but working here, in this country." The silence lingered. Then she took a breath. "Because my mother's health depends on the medicine I send home every month. Because my younger brother dropped out of school to work, and I want to send him back, because I dream of more." He stared at her, unreadable. Then slowly, deliberately, he reached into a drawer, pulled out a single envelope, and slid it across the desk. "Inside is the deed to a 2-bedroom apartment 5 blocks from here. Fully paid. Keys are in it, too." Maria froze. Her throat dried. Her voice trembled. "Why?" Grayson leaned back. "Because I trust you with my wealth, more than I trust myself. Because your bangle is worth more than every bar of gold in that vault." The elevator opened to the topmost floor of Laxford Industries. Everyone was already seated in the boardroom. Olivia stepped in, modest yet composed, her presence soft yet unmistakably firm. Her green dress was still neatly pressed, scarf still elegantly draped. The boardroom went silent. The same men and women who'd snickered at her inappropriate attire at the reception were now standing. It's not by choice, but because Richard stood up, and so did the rest. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, turning to the room, "I'd like to introduce you all to the one person who made this meeting and this company's future even possible." Gasps whispered across the room. Olivia walked to the head of the table. "I'm not here to seek approval," she said gently. "Only alignment." One man stuttered. "Wait, you're the chairwoman?" Richard turned to him slowly, his voice cool. She always was. Olivia tapped the file in front of her. It bore the original foundation papers of Laxford Industries. Laxford had a silent partner, she revealed. A man who didn't care about public glory but owned 51% of the company until his death. That man was my father. After his death, his shares were transferred to me. She paused. I remained anonymous because I wanted to understand who truly runs this company. Not the numbers, the people. A sharp-eyed board member whispered, "That's why the CEO flew out to meet her. That's why this entire meeting exists," Olivia continued. "I sat in the lobby to observe how your culture flows from the front desk to this boardroom. And what I saw," her voice grew firmer, ... was deeply disappointing. No one could look her in the eye now, especially the interviewer from that morning. He sat stiffly at the far end of the table, drenched in guilt. "Minds have you dismissed based on attire or accent?" Olivia asked him, not in anger, a quiet disappointment. He opened his mouth to respond, but words betrayed him. "I remember being asked if I knew how to use a computer," Olivia said with a faint smile. "I've coded Laxford's earliest AI architecture. I've published 5 research papers under a pen name some of you tried to discredit just last month." The room tenned. Then slowly, she pushed the stack of old interview resumes forward. "Here's a list of women and men you all rejected for lacking polish. I've reviewed them. Many are brilliant. Some could have changed the trajectory of this company if given the chance." There was shame on every face now. Too late, Richard nodded toward her proud. The chairwoman will be leading the upcoming restructuring. And yes, your roles, your performance, your mindsets will all be reviewed. A few squirmed in their seats. Others looked relieved. Olivia turned toward the interviewer. It will assist me in rebuilding the recruitment framework.
What?
As punishment, but as a lesson. You will learn what excellence truly looks like, beyond shoes, suits, or skin tone. He nodded silently, tears forming in his eyes. And the receptionist? She asked Richard softly. She's already been sent home, he replied. And her contract is under review. Olivia's voice remained calm. Send her a message from me that kindness leaves a better impression than judgment. She stood. This company was built by visionaries. It will now be led by those who see people, not just polish. The room stood once more, this time not out of obligation, but reverence, and as Olivia walked out. The sun broke through the glass windows, casting light across the room. The same light that once reflected off polished marble and gold now followed a woman in soft green whose presence would redefine everything. Within the week, Laxford Industries felt like a different place. Gone were the glass barriers between departments, the cold policies that kept creativity buried under layers of formality. Olivia's first directive was simple but profound. Let talent speak louder than titles. She personally reviewed the old HR files, not from her penthouse office, but side by side with every department. She asked questions, listened, observed. Without judgment, people who were once silenced now had a voice in the break room. Someone whispered, "She sits with the interns, like they matter. She doesn't just sit," someone else added. She asks them what they would change, and she meant it in a quiet corner of the HR floor. Olivia found Mia, the same receptionist who had treated her with disdain that first morning. Mia stood, clearly nervous. I didn't know who you were," she said, fumbling with her words. I made assumptions." Olivia nodded slowly, then motioned for her to sit. "You assumed I didn't belong," she said, not harshly, "and you're not the only one." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. I was just following what I thought was company." Image. Olivia leaned forward. "That image is broken, Mia, but now you know better, so use that to help fix it." Mia blinked. You'll assist the new outreach training. Teach people what you've learned the hard way. Kindness, awareness, grace." Mia covered her mouth with her hand. She never expected forgiveness, let alone opportunity. Next came the most unexpected move of all. Olivia reopened 50 previously rejected applications from the past year, applicants who were turned away for their attire, accent, or lack of connections. They were invited for a special second chance week. No suits required. No rehearsed English, just real conversations. One by one, they arrived. A brilliant coder who spoke softly and had no degree. A single mom with 5 years of inventory experience. A former janitor with a knack for logistical systems. And Olivia. She met every one of them in person. By Friday, 15 new hires were announced. Each one handpicked. Not for where they came from, but for what they carried within them. On a Friday evening, Olivia invited the senior leadership to a quiet dinner. No long speeches. Just shared bread, warm laughter, and stories that didn't revolve around quarterly profits. And at the end she stood, raising her glass of water. "This company," she said softly, "was almost everything it claimed to be. Almost. But we missed something. Something human." She looked around. "We forgot what dignity looks like in worn-out shoes. What brilliance sounds like through a stutter. We forgot that humility builds empires, not just resumes." Silence fell. Then Richard stood beside her, raising his own glass. "To the woman who reminded us all, to Chairwoman Olivia, they." Echoed in this time, was no doubt. No one saw a simple woman anymore. They saw the standard. It didn't take long for news of Olivia's leadership to spread beyond the walls of Laxford Industries. Magazines that once overlooked her now called her a silent revolution. Business analysts puzzled over the sudden rise in employee satisfaction and project success rates. She's rewriting leadership, one anchor murmured during a morning business show. She's making empathy profitable, said another. But Olivia paid no attention to the noise. Her eyes stayed on the quiet voices within her company, the kind that were once ignored. One day, as she walked past the janitorial supply room, she heard two custodians laughing softly. She said hello to me by name. One whispered, still stunned, "Called me Mr. Daniel. Never in 18 years. The other smiled. She even asked about my daughter's wedding. Neither knew she had paused just outside the door and smiled. One morning, as the soft light poured into her office, Olivia's assistant knocked lightly. "Ma'am, there's a man downstairs who's asked to see you." Urgently, she lifted her gaze. A name he wouldn't say? But he insisted you'd remember him. Curious, Olivia descended the stairs instead of having him brought up. In the lobby, she spotted him instantly. The man from the first interview. The one who mocked her dress, laughed at her resume, silenced her with a smirk. He looked smaller now, humbled. His tie was loosened, and there were gray strands in his hair that hadn't been there before. He stood when he saw her, hesitating. "I heard what you've done with the place," he said. "Didn't believe it. Till I saw it myself." She waited. "Was wrong about you," he admitted. "I thought the suit made the person." She nodded calm. "Many people do. I came to ask, is there a place for someone like me still?" There was a long pause. "Only," Olivia said, "if you're ready to listen more than you lead." He looked down and slowly nodded. As weeks turned to months, Olivia's office became known for something peculiar. The door was always open, literally, from interns to custodians. Anyone could request a 5-minute chat. Not all came with problems. Some just came to thank her. One older woman, nearing retirement, brought Olivia a small hand-stitched cloth. "I've worked here 32 years, she said, voice trembling. It's the first time I felt seen." Olivia ran her fingers over the stitching. Soft floral pattern with delicate initials. O.H. Tears welled in her eyes. She rose and hugged the woman, not as a boss, not as a chairwoman, but as a fellow human being. That small cloth? Had it framed, it hung behind her desk from that day forward. Under Olivia's guidance, Laxford didn't just rise in profits. It redefined what success meant. Competitors scrambled to copy the open culture model. Ivy League schools began citing the Olivia method. In leadership courses, startups wrote her quotes on their walls. Hire for humanity, train for greatness. But to Olivia, all of it was just the beginning. One evening, as she walked alone through the quiet office, she paused outside the original interview room, the one where she was once humiliated. She stepped inside. The room hadn't changed much. Same chairs, same harsh lights, same silence, but something in the air felt healed. She walked to the center, closed her eyes, and whispered, "I forgive you," then turned and left it behind. On an early winter morning, a thick envelope arrived on Olivia's desk. No name, just her office address. She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, handwritten in familiar loops. "Dear Olivia, I don't know if you remember me. I was in the panel that day, the day we all failed you. I've watched from afar as you've led with grace. You made me realize what leadership really means. Not power, not posture, but presence, integrity, listening. If I could go back, I'd speak up. I'd say, look at her, not her shoes. But I didn't. And for that, I'm sorry, sincerely." The one who stayed silent, Olivia read the letter twice, then folded it gently and placed it in her drawer beside her old resume. The one they once laughed at. They both belonged there now, not as wounds, but as witness. Months later, the Global Business Ethics Forum invited Olivia to speak. It was a black tie event, chandeliers, red carpet, rows of CEOs and politicians. Olivia arrived in her signature style, a soft olive dress and cream scarf. Just like the day of her interview, her presence turned heads. Not because of wealth, but because of warmth. When it was her turn on stage, applause began before she spoke. She smiled gently, stepped to the microphone, and began in a calm, clear voice. Years ago, I walked into a room not unlike this. One, hoping for a chance. Instead, I was judged not by what I could do, but by what I wore, how I spoke, what I wasn't. The room stilled, but I don't stand here to shame. I stand here because that pain taught me the greatest truth. Dignity doesn't ask for permission, and humility leads even when it isn't seen. Her words landed like a soft tide, steady, emotional, unforgettable. They didn't just applaud, they stood. On her first real vacation in years, Olivia visited her childhood neighborhood. The streets were the same. The corner shops still sold warm bread. Her mother's garden, now tended by neighbors, still bloomed. She walked the lanes slowly, memories tugging gently at the community center. She met young girls preparing for job interviews, nervous, doubtful, just like she once was. She sat with them in a circle. Cross-legged on the floor, one girl asked. But what if they laugh at us? Olivia smiled. Then laugh back, but never at yourself, because someday they won't be able to look away. The room grew quiet, eyes wide, hearts open, and in that moment, Olivia realized she hadn't just changed a company, she was changing a generation. Years passed. Olivia aged gracefully, her hair streaked with silver, her steps slower, but her presence just as profound. One day, a documentary was released titled, "The Woman They Laughed At, Now They're Chairwoman." It opened with that very moment in the lobby when the CEO had bowed to her, slow motion, silent, sacred, and then Olivia's voice, narrating softly. They didn't bow to power, they bowed to their own blindness and chose to see me, finally. That clip became iconic. Students quoted it, boards debated it, women replayed it on hard days, whispering, "If she rose, so can I." Olivia never watched the full film. She didn't need to. Her eyes were already fixed on what came next. In the newly renovated headquarters of Monroe Holdings, there was a space called the Legacy Room. Inside, walls were lined with portraits of past leaders, sharp suits, formal poses, frozen in time. But at the very center stood a living installation. Not a portrait, not a plaque, a simple glass case with a soft olive green dress, neatly pressed. Beside it a cream scarf, and on the base, engraved in quiet bronze, she walked in with nothing but dignity and left with everything that mattered. Visitors would pause their longest, executives, interns, even rival CEOs. Some with tears, some with awe, all with respect, because that room wasn't about power. It was about proof that even the quietest woman could shake an empire. Without ever raising her voice, on a quiet Friday morning, Olivia had just finished a board meeting when her assistant informed her. "Ma'am, someone's requested 5 minutes," he said. "He once sat across you at an interview." Her eyes narrowed, not in bitterness, but curiosity. She nodded. In walked a man, slightly hunched now, older, nervous. The very HR head who once chuckled at her scarf and sandals. He didn't speak at first. He just placed a brown file on her desk and bowed slightly. "I came to ask for forgiveness," he said, his voice dry. Olivia looked at him, not with anger, but with something even heavier, stillness. "I forgave you the moment I realized your ignorance wasn't mine to carry," she said softly, "but thank you for saying it anyway." He stood quietly, eyes glistening. "Also," Olivia added gently, "we no longer evaluate candidates based on appearance. That was one of the first policies I changed." The man smiled faintly and left with something far more valuable than pride: peace. That evening, Olivia visited her granddaughter's school for a special storytelling session. The children sat, cross-legged, eyes wide, crayons still in hand. "What story will you tell us today?" one child asked. Olivia smiled, settling into the low reading chair. "I'll tell you a story about a girl who walked into a big, scary building where no one smiled at her, not even once. But instead of shrinking, she stood taller. The kids gasped, some fists clenched in support. And then, her granddaughter whispered. She sat through their laughter. She swallowed their silence. And when the time came, she didn't just get the job. She changed the place forever. "Is it a fairy tale?" the boy asked. Olivia leaned in with a wink. No, it was real. I know. Because that girl is me. Cheers. Erupted. Little arms clapped. Tiny voices shouted, "You're a hero." But Olivia just smiled. "No, my loves," she whispered. "You are. You just don't know it yet." Years later, at age 71, Olivia announced her retirement. News outlets called it the end of an era. Colleagues cried. The board begged her to stay on as honorary advisor, but Olivia had made up her mind. "I've given the best of me," she said. "Now I'll give that same energy to rest, writing, and maybe gardening." On her last day, a young intern knocked softly on her door. "Nervous?" Olivia asked with a smile. Terrified, the girl admitted, "I have an interview today and I don't think I'm what they're looking for." Olivia stood, walked over and gently handed her a folded piece of cloth. It was her scarf. "Take this," she said. "Walk in not to fit their frame, but to remind them what strength looks like." The girl held it close, eyes aiming, and in that instant, Olivia passed on more than fabric. She passed a flame, a quiet revolution, one scarf at a time. Long after Olivia had stepped away from the boardroom, the story of her first humiliating interview continued to echo at Monroe Holdings. Every new employee received a simple booklet on day one titled The Scarf Principle. It told the story of how a woman entered the company in worn sandals and left as chairwoman. Not because she changed who she was, but because she stayed true to it. The final page always read, "Appearances fade. Dignity echoes." And the last illustration? A chair at the head of a table, empty, waiting for the next Olivia. One quiet spring morning, in a small countryside cafe, far from the city's skyline, a retired Olivia sat reading a book. Hair silver now, her hands resting on a warm cup of mint tea. She looked up as a young woman approached, nervous, holding a resume. I'm sorry to disturb," the girl stammered. "Are you Olivia Monroe?" "I am," she smiled. "Sit down. Just wanted to say, I watched your story on a documentary last year. It changed everything for me." Olivia gently closed her book. "Tell me," she said, "what did it help you believe that? I don't have to pretend to be someone before I can become someone." Olivia's eyes glistened. She reached across the table and touched the girl's hand. "Then you already are someone." They sipped tea in silence after that. No interviews, no judgment, just legacy meeting its next breath at a university seminar. One autumn evening, a professor ended her lecture on leadership with this: "Some rise with voice, others with wealth, but the rarest kind rise with grace." She clicked the remote. A photo appeared. Olivia in her olive dress and scarf, seated at the head of the board. Eyes warm, spine straight. The students stared. Many laughed when she arrived for her interview, the professor continued. But no one laughed when she left. There was silence. And then, a standing ovation, not for a celebrity, but for a woman who turned pain into policy, humiliation into human change, and rejection. On her 80th birthday, Olivia's family gifted her a scrapbook filled with letters from people she had touched in turns. Single mothers, even rival CEOs. Tears spilled freely as she turned each page, but one letter, placed in a golden envelope at the back, was different. It was from herself. Written decades ago on the night of her failed interview, long before success ever touched her name, it read, "Dear Olivia, they didn't see your worth today. That's not your fault. One day, they will. Until then, keep walking in your truth. Don't chase the door. Become the key." Her hands trembled. She looked up at her children and grandchildren, all watching. And in that moment, Olivia Monroe, the woman who was once laughed out of a room, laughed herself. But this time, she laughed with love and the world. Laughed with her. The end. The end.